again, everybody. Welcome to Can't Wait. Sounds terrible. This is the Southwest edition, or at least I'm coming to you from the Southwest Bureau. We'll cover that a little later. That's Eleni. That's Patrick. Producer Grace behind the scenes, pushing buttons, spinning dials, making this better. And there's a lot to make better, Producer Grace, all across the world, but at least you can just focus on this little podcast. Well, Chicago and the country are talking about the loss of the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who died after a battle with a neuromuscular disease that was related to his battle with Parkinson's. He was a giant in civil rights, national politics, Democratic politics, Chicago politics. And what a life, Patrick, that he led.
Truly remarkable. All of the story arcs that he bestowed on so many facets, and I think sometimes we say this often, but if I were to think back, they don't make them like they used to. Seems to apply to Reverend Jackson, a transformative figure across generations, across pressing issues in society. Those who follow my career arc know that a former president and CEO of a chamber of commerce stood toe to toe with Jesse Jackson, asking that all the air traffic controllers not be fired. And then to think 20 years later that gentleman was serving as the head of a chamber of commerce was interesting. But multiple times throughout all of our experiences running the chamber and our government affairs advocacy, a lot of lessons that Mr. John Schmidt learned from working with Jesse Jackson on that particular strike still applied and were still relevant and are things I remember in terms of organizing campaigns to this day.
Yeah, Lenny, I covered him as a boy reporter running around the streets of Chicago. I remember shortly after his 1988 presidential run, he was still a national figure, but he was making a Chicago appearance, and he was one of the few sort of national Democratic voices that was willing to push back on then President H.W. Bush, who was riding high after the successful handling of getting Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait. And I remember walking up and down a street with a gaggle of other reporters. For some reason, he couldn't stand still. We just kept walking up and down the block because he kept throwing out sound bites, and he was brilliant at sound bites and brilliant at working with the media. And I remember at the time, the polling for H.W. Bush was that he had a 90% approval rating, if you think about that.
Wow.
And Jackson said, we need a president, not a prime minister. And you could just kind of hear his voice and his rhythmic way of delivering his lines. And sure enough, in a couple of years, as the economy ran into some issues, H.W. Bush took all the hits for it's the economy stupid approach of the Clinton campaign, and he wound up being only a one-term president. And that set in motion a lot of other things down the line. But so many times this national figure would swoop into Springfield or Chicago or around the world to get involved in whatever the hot issue was that was capturing especially the attention of the legacy news media.
Yeah, no, I think just in my experience over the last, we're not going to count how many years that I've been involved in, the political world and government. The former Reverend Jesse Jackson was always a figure, and a bipartisan figure at that. I mean, definitely he, was on the Democratic side for the most part, but he was always, willing to have conversations, see the other side of things. And I think that that's, as Patrick said, they don't make them like that anymore. And it's going to be a huge loss, because even up until the end here, he had a lot of influence over what was happening here in Illinois and actually across the nation. And so I think we are going to see a ripple effect of hit the loss in the coming weeks, months, and several campaign cycles too.
In the late 90s, former Congressman, later Governor Rod Blagojevich, great American, great political figure in his own right, decided to get involved in trying to secure the release of a couple of American servicemen who were captured by Yugoslavian forces during the United Nations campaign in Kosovo. And Reverend Jackson swooped in and really showed Blagojevich how to do this because he had already secured other Americans who were in harm's way over the previous 15, 20 years. And I remember, fast forward now, I'm working at O'Hare Airport on behalf of Mayor Daley, and I'm watching this press conference take place when they return back to Chicago, and pretty much the congressman was elbowed out of just about every TV shot, and certainly just about every photo in that process. Mike Royko, the legendary Chicago columnist, used to call him Jetstream Jesse because wherever there was some big international news event, he'd be on a plane and he would be there. We'll be hearing a lot about Reverend Jackson certainly in the days and months ahead, and there'll be some great stories, some unique Chicago stories for sure. Now, everyone on this pod may feel a little bit more kinship with the loss of another important cultural figure who once said, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning." Actor Robert Duvall. If there's ever a phrase that pays for the Can't Wait Sounds Terrible show, it should be, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory." And I'm sure producer Grace will find something to remind us of that in her final edit.
You smell that? Napalm, son. Nothing else in the world smells like that. I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Do you smell napalm, Eleni?
Yeah, I mean the hits keep coming, right? We keep losing some good ones. Yep, just
That, of
another.
course, was his line as Colonel Bill Kilgore in Apocalypse Now, which was Coppola's take on the Vietnam War vis-a-vis the older story of The Heart of Darkness. So a lot of characters in that tale, and he brought that character and so many other characters that I've always kind of related to the consigliere to The Godfather. Another great role of his as Tom Hagen. So maybe we have a few things in common with some of his characters. We love napalm. We know how to represent clients who have an offer you can't refuse. Speaking of napalm, Eleni, Hyatt Hotels executive chairman Tom Pritzker said he's retiring from his position at the company, citing an association with the late, great, disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah. Wow and not wow. It's just fascinating to me how there's so much interconnection with these emails and these names, and I'm just wondering what the threshold is of what makes someone decide, okay, this is going to tank me, right? Because we've seen some people listed in these files that are like, just going about my business, whatever, my name's in there, hundreds, thousands of names in there, whatever. And then others are taking it to this level of, hey, I'm stepping down. And again, he's not being accused of any wrongdoing. So at least for now. So it's like, is this like a moral threshold that these individuals named in the files are having of, I feel horrible about it, or is there more to come? So I think we're all still trying to, at least I am, just really wrap my head around what the ultimate analysis is of all of these files and where does it all land in the end for these people that are in there.
I think you're saying, Patrick, Hyatt being a consumer facing brand probably has a lot to do with it. And while there may be blue states and red states, all the states seem to be united on one thing, which is that Jeffrey Epstein was a creep.
Totally. And I will say there's more to this story. Last week, took a minute to Google the Fine Pritzker name exclusively in the Epstein files. And there are 7,000 responsive records tied to Pritzker. And, everybody's got a creepy cousin. I think that was JB's first offense. I don't talk to him. He's crazy. I mean, he's the head of my family company, but I don't talk to him that much. Just cash the dividend checks. But other members of the Pritzker family also emailed Mr. Epstein why he was in prison, wondering when he was getting out of prison. So, one, everybody's got a creepy cousin. 2, 3, 4 members of your family emailing with Mr. Epstein. I just hope the Chicago media does a rigorous reporting of this, gets to the bottom of who knew what when relative to the Pritzker entanglements with the Epsteins. I believe one relative suggested having a party to celebrate him being released from prison. So, time will tell.
I think it's pretty clear Patrick's been doing a lot of deep diving into the files.
He's doing some deep dives into the deep state to find out what is really there.
I like it.
Because I think it is. We've all talked about this. It is remarkable sometimes. This governor has an ability to kind of Teflon. Things just kind of seem to slide. And I will suggest, and we can play this tape back later. 7,000 is a lot of records. It's not like, hey, I was at the same meeting with him. Epstein went to the Architecture Prize contest several times overseas and these things. So, I mean, and that's an architecture magazine and other things. So we'll see. I think this will be something that if it's not Chicago media, fellow nominees for the Democrat presidential race are certainly going to make of this. And in a year or two, we can see what we all learn about the nexus between relatives of the governor and the disgraced Jeffrey Epstein.
Producer Grace, you'll be running this entire podcast past legal before we broadcast. There just may be like in the final cut, there just may be some gray scratchy noise when Patrick talks. Well, getting sued by one of the most powerful, wealthy families in the world is terrible. And that is a nice segue to what sounds terrible. Eleni, you're in a terrible mood, it seems. So why don't we let you get some things off your chest?
As opposed to when? Other times that I'm not. I mean, I literally was stewing on this earlier and I was like, everything is terrible right now across the board. Like everything sucks. I would say, I worry. I talked a little bit about this last week about the budget address tomorrow. But I think just given how hostile things are getting, how political things are getting, how just depressive this budget address is probably going to be. And the ripple effect that that's going to have on so many different industries in Illinois. So buckle up is all I'm going to say, everybody.
Buckle up, Buttercup. It's also, a good thing that...
And my other sounds terrible. I normally don't hate President's Day. It's a great day. Okay, love it. But what I don't understand is why my child also had the day after President's Day off, which is today. Luckily,
Is that has that become Vice President's Day? Maybe.
I think so. It's like Vice President's Day or Alternative President's Day. I don't know. But I'm very terrible. Like, why?
Is
So,
this,
throw me off.
do they call it midwinter break? What is the
No, it's
technical
just some
reason?
like professional services day. So,
Children should be in school. They should be
yeah,
educated. They should be in school.
about
I
the
mean,
presidents, about the
right.
presidents.
Learn if you really want to learn about the presidents, go to school.
So I'm done.
It's a good thing that this show is not called Sounds Awesome. Sounds awesome. I love it. Patrick, what sounds terrible to you?
Well, aside from apparently being served some papers and a performance review of my commentary on this podcast, I think I will also say what sounds terrible. I'm with Eleni. I think we're going to see a lot of doom and gloom out of the budget address. A lot of organizations going to be racing to secure fundraising or concerns about their funding being cut, and then magically a solution will be found and the cliff will be averted, and it will all be a lot of uh, wrenching theater. But also for other viewers who are thrilled with Dennis's review of Apocalypse Now, he and I are available for our ongoing commentary about Marx Brothers films. If you'd ever like to call in and run through the greatest hits, we like to talk about Duck Soup in particular. We are available for a cocktail party discussion anytime.
The Republic of Fredonia may count on us. We may have to cover Fredonia on one of our slow news weeks. So my sounds terrible is really all just wrapped up in sort of the overall theme of the show, which is taking some joy out of the misfortune of others. And I've been unable to experience that Schadenfreude because I'm in the Southwest. I'm in Arizona for assignment, and the weather is the same here as it is in Chicago. People are going to car washes. It's 60 degrees. It's 60 degrees here. It rained last night in the desert. What's up with that? I can't gloat. In fact, I have to wear a sweater because it's chilly. That sucks. That sounds terrible to me. It sounds awesome for Chicago, although I hear the weather is going to take another turn. You know, Chicago, give it 20 minutes, it'll change again. But it's terrible that I can't gloat. I know that's why Natalie probably didn't appear today. She didn't want to hear about it. And as it turns out, she could have gloated right back at me and shown up in a summer attire.
And also, though, do you want to elaborate that you're on assignment in Arizona for the Nancy Guthrie investigation? Because we know that's why you're there. So,
I spent a lot of time out looking for clues, looking for gloves. That is a tragic story that we just made fun of right here on this podcast. So we're going to get sued. If we don't get sued by the hotel heirs, we'll get sued by the Guthries or endure just national shame.
Sometimes litigation is the only way to promotion. So, the best thing to happen to a podcast is to get sued. So, raises our stakes. I will say, Dennis, Frankie and I we were out for our anniversary dinner and we noticed you on the television and I felt your pain because you were wearing a jacket yesterday. I thought
It's cold.
that is terrible. That poor Dennis has to wear a jacket down there. And I was just pleased you brought one. And you didn't have to add that to the expense account for this trip, like a jacket.
Midwestern roots run deep. All right, well, that's enough terribleness. That's enough exposing ourselves to litigation. That's enough smelling the napalm. That smell, that gasoline smell. Anyway, can't wait. Sounds terrible. If it's terrible, we can't wait for it. That's Patrick. That's Eleni. Thanks to producer Grace. We'll see you next time.